Christmas season. How are you doing, Glennis?
I'm doing something different this year.
Tell me.
I typically only do white lights on my tree. This year I did white and colored.
Stop the presses.
I know, it's a big deal.
That's worthy of a New York Times push notification, if you ask me.
I think so. Anyway, ho ho ho.
Okay, ho ho ho. It's Christmas season.
And Hanukkah.
And time to talk about murder. Let's get into it.
Brian, it is like crazy. I mean, I want to acknowledge I actually emailed someone this morning who the last time I emailed them was around this time last year, and we'd worked on like the election together. And I was like, I hope you're well. I would think that you were better than this time last year, but I gotta say, this year has been a doozy.
Yeah, I think that the last few weeks have picked us up from rock bottom for sure, where we're coming off of really big election wins, Trump's approval ratings in the dumper, in the toilet, which we're going to talk about. The shutdown potentially had some positive effects policy-wise, thanks to Democrats. But yeah, we're still in an existential crisis for sure.
I just was watching a thing on the White House Instagram page, which is essentially just a meme page at this point, of a bunch of veterans defending Pete Hegseth. I want to talk about that first, because this is like Geneva Convention, war crime. You're going to jail, or at least you should be.
Yeah. So I believe it was WAPO that broke the story that Pete Hegseth, back in September, when they started these unconstitutional drone strikes on random people in the Caribbean, as we've talked about, they don't know who they are. We don't know who they are. There's no process for proving that these people are related to drug traffickers, let alone guilty of drug trafficking themselves. At least one government has come out and said that they have proof that at least one of the people was just a fisherman doing his job.
Right.
And the United States has produced no evidence to disprove that. And the Washington Post comes out and says, not only have we been drone striking these boats, but when there were two survivors of one of the strikes, we hit them again. And there was a second strike specifically intended to kill the survivors of the strike.
Right. And like, this isn't a rules of war podcast, but that is one of the rules of warfare, is that if a person is injured and they cannot fight back, you are legally, through like the Geneva Conventions, you're not supposed to strike them again. They can't defend themselves.
Right.
And the fact that Pete Hegseth said, "Get him again," is very, very bad. We've killed more than 80 people. The United States government has killed more than 80 people off the coast of Venezuela.
And not only is it the Geneva Convention, which in his confirmation hearing, Pete Hegseth refused to say that we should follow as a country, it's also been put into U.S. law. It's like the Wartime Powers Act, where the U.S. adopted some of those rules from the Geneva Convention as law in the United States.
Yeah.
So we have both Democrats and Republicans outraged immediately over this. Republicans saying that if the reporting is accurate, then this is definitely illegal and potentially a war crime. And of course, Democrats are saying the same thing, universal condemnation. It's not disputed that there was a second strike to kill the people who had survived. It's only being disputed who gave that order and what the order from Hegseth was, because it sounds like there's agreement that he said kill everybody,
right?
But that was only a verbal order, so it's right now like a he said, she said.
There's plausible deniability because it was a verbal order.
Hegseth himself at the time, back in September, said that he was there watching it happen live,
right?
That he was part of the action, like I'm imagining in the Situation Room or whatever, where we've all seen those movies where they all sit around a screen and watch the thing happen. If he was there, then he would have been there between strikes, between the first one and the second one. So I feel like there's accountability there.
I have no doubt that he did it.
Yeah, of course I wouldn't be surprised. As we've said, he's like a drunk,
toddler,
power hungry Fox News host who suddenly got control over the largest military in the world. It's insane. It's why he never should have been confirmed.
It's deeply disturbing. So that's happening.
I already said jail. Jail for Hegseth. Of course, that's not going to happen under the Trump administration. No. But I think that we need to be loud about what our expectations are for the next Democratic president when they come into power in 2029. I want jail for Hegseth when this is proved true.
Yeah.
And I want jail for tons of these ICE agents who are doing all kinds of illegal stuff.
Yeah.
And there's tons of documented cases of criminal behavior and abuses of power and all these things. We should absolutely be making clear we expect prosecutions from the next DOJ. That should not even be debatable in the Democratic primary for president.
I agree. And that's why we should be recording any ICE activity we see. So Jamie Dimon did an interview recently, and he was asked why
he's the head of
JP Morgan.
Yeah.
JP Morgan Chase. You may have heard of her. Anyway, he was doing an interview and was asked why JP Morgan had not contributed to the Trump ballroom at the White House. And he said very plainly he thinks that in a potentially a Democratic controlled government that it is considered bribery.
Absolutely.
Period. Thank you, Jamie Dimon.
Right. And that really should have put all these other companies on notice that we're coming for you. When you bribe the president and get tariff exemptions, it's illegal. Whether Trump himself says that it's okay is immaterial to the fact that that is against U.S. law, and you should be prosecuted for it.
Can I talk about one more thing that's chapping my ass?
Yeah.
I'm going to stay in LATAM here.
Yeah.
The pardon of the former president of Honduras, Juan Orlando Hernandez. Can we talk about that for a second? Donald Trump is so full of shit. We know this.
Yeah.
This former president of Honduras was put into federal prison after a very robust, very lengthy trial put on by the DOJ. Super guilty. You know, he's like on the record saying that he wanted to like flood the United States with cocaine. He's responsible for bringing over 500 tons of cocaine to the United States. And the way he did that was by allowing Honduras to be a pass-through for the cartels. The same cartels that Trump is saying are narco-terrorists and that we have to prosecute. So Trump's bombing people off the coast of Venezuela while simultaneously pardoning a tremendously guilty collaborator of the cartels.
Yeah, it really undercuts the entire claim of the administration that they're trying to prevent drugs from entering the U.S. when you are freeing the person who's most successfully been held accountable for the mass importation of drugs into the U.S. that have killed people. So then it naturally leads to the question, why? Why is Trump going after Venezuela in this way? Why bomb the boats? Why put a price on Maduro's head? Why initiate CIA covert action in Venezuela? Why the military buildup in an unprecedented way off the coast of South America? If it's not about drugs, because clearly it's not.
The man who was like, put the white stuff up the gringos' noses, who took $1 million from El Chapo, is now freed.
Right. And reserving my right to wear my conspiratorial thinking cap.
Tinfoil.
I can't help but notice that the Trump sons have joined the boards of a bunch of defense contractors that are receiving hundreds of millions, now I think billions of dollars in government contracts as the United States ramps up military spending around this engagement. It always comes back to money. With Donald Trump, it always comes back to money and how is he enriching himself? The largest pot of money in the U.S. government is in the defense budget. And so if you want to rob the American people blind, the place that you have to go to get the cash is in defense, defense contractors. And it's not a coincidence that little Trump, mini Trump, is joining the boards of these companies that are then suddenly getting contracts to sell hundreds of millions of dollars of drones to the U.S.
Yeah, follow the money. with Trump.
There's also the oil element, right?
Sure.
That Venezuela has the largest deposit of oil and minerals, I think, of any country in the world right now. I'm pretty sure that also it could be playing a role here. I mean, Republicans are out there saying regime change by Christmas.
Right.
So it's the opposite of America first, as we've talked about. It's Trump first, and who cares next?
Yeah. And Argentina first. Don't forget. Let's go domestic for a second.
Yeah.
There's been some redistricting news.
This is my Roman Empire, and I spend all my time reading about and thinking about redistricting. The biggest news of this week / next week is Indiana, where they called a special session. The Indiana House is going to pass this map that would eliminate 2 Democratic seats in Indiana. And they're facing an uphill battle in passing it in the Indiana Senate, even though Republicans have like a supermajority.
Yeah.
The reason is because, one, there are the speaker of that body and a couple other Republicans are just adamantly opposed to the power grab itself. And then Trump really shot himself in the foot, what we would call instant karma, when he posted on Truth Social calling Tim Walz, excuse my language, a retard.
Right.
And then one of the state legislators whose vote he really needs then came out and said, I will be voting against this map. And maybe Donald Trump can use the next year to think about his language and why he should make the case to the American people that he actually deserves a majority in Congress. That legislator has a daughter who happens to have Down syndrome. And so it was like a instant blowback moment that actually was like, oh, words do matter.
Yeah.
And you being an unhinged, potentially mentally unstable man in your aging years is maybe going to bite you in the ass finally.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad to see it. I wish more of his actions had consequences. Yeah. But this is a real one, so thank you to that state legislator.
Yeah, they're continuing to push on for it. Another one of the legislators, I forget her name, said that she had Trump supporters call in a bomb threat to her house this weekend, and she said, I'm not budging. I don't care. You can threaten me however you want. And I'm like, good for you, girl.
Yeah. We talked about political violence earlier this year.
Yeah, a lot.
Who's doing it?
Right.
The Trump supporters.
Right. And Trump never, ever condemns it.
Ever.
When he starts attacking people by name and then immediately those people face very intense death threats and like threats to their physical safety, he never speaks out against it. Remember, same thing happened to Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah.
He started attacking her. She started getting crazy death threats, posted about it, and he said, nobody cares.
Remember January 6th?
Well, right.
And all those people are pardoned, some of whom who have gone on to recommit crimes.
Right. Yeah, it's endless.
Endless.
In the other redistricting buckets, Florida is gearing up to potentially redistrict there. Republicans could get up to 3 seats. And then Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, the Supreme Court just appointed a 3-judge panel to review the maps that could result in more fair maps in Wisconsin. Remember, Wisconsin's basically a 50-50 state, and Republicans send, I think it's like 65 to 70% of the congressional delegation, which is just a super imbalanced result.
What's the spread here? Are we just like redistricting all over the map to the point of just being back at ground floor and have this same?
Yeah. Right now it's mostly a wash. Texas, we're waiting on the Supreme Court to weigh in, but it's expected that their gerrymander will go through. That and California basically cancel each other out. Republicans picked up a seat in North Carolina. That's going to hold. Likely a seat. I shouldn't say it's not a guarantee that they would flip that seat in North Carolina, but it got even harder for us. In Missouri, Republicans stole a seat, but we're working to block that through the ballot measure. You can support that ballot measure at the link in my bio.
Name it.
We picked up a seat in Utah through a more fair map there. Ohio was a compromise map where we could hold all 3 or lose up to 3 seats depending on how next year goes. So yeah, we're in sort of like a 0 ±1 situation right now, but I expect by the end of all the redistricting madness, we will be more in like a -4 scenario, maybe -5.
So to that, we had a special election in Tennessee. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Let's freaking go. We have continued to see Democratic overperformance as we have all year long, and this was no exception. This activist in Tennessee running just outside of Nashville,
where Trump spent $1.7 million of his PAC dollars.
Yeah. And all these Republicans have flooded the airwaves. All these Republican super PACs have had to come in to try to save Matt Van Epps, who sucks. I do think it's worth noting that AOC and Kamala Harris and a couple other people who are seen as really progressive and very polarizing figures all did like get out the vote efforts in the final hours or days of the campaign, which is really different than we saw from the races in Virginia and New Jersey, for example, earlier this fall, where Democrats also overperformed, but they kept the national figures away as much as they could. There was some Obama involvement, but he's like basically Mr. Rogers at this point. I wonder if she would have done better if we had not drawn that parallel, because Republicans were running ads and calling Afton Bain the AOC of Tennessee. And I don't think that it depresses Democratic turnout. I don't think that center left or moderate voters are turned off by it, but I think that it juices MAGA people who might not have voted otherwise and might not have cared. I think that there's like an animosity reserved for these figures like AOC and Harris that comes out when you pull them into the race and nationalize it in that way.
I agree. And I think it helps the Republican candidates for messaging frame. Okay, it's end of year. We're kind of all over the place a little bit, but let's just do a little touchstone of how we're feeling about the Trump administration almost a year in. Would we say it's in shambles?
I think we would say it's in shambles.
Yeah.
We're seeing Trump hit repeated new lows for his overall approval rating. Most recently, 25% approval from independents.
Yikes.
Yeah, down to 36% overall, which is the lowest I think it's ever been recorded for him. And that's part of a trend. That's not one poll. That is consistent across polls and across time that he's been dropping.
If you're looking at a graph, it's going down.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. And his disapproval rating's up to 60% now.
Yikes.
It's dropped 7 points just from Republicans. And so when we talk about the war crimes and we talk about the cuts to healthcare and doubling premiums, the lack of focus on grocery prices, the self-enrichment and checks going to Argentina, the personal dealings and pardons for crypto billionaires. These things are having an effect on Republicans as well as independents and Democrats. People are not liking what Trump is up to, and ICE. I can't leave out masked agents running around snatching people up. There are going to be political consequences, and you can see Republicans really starting to panic about what this all means for the midterms.
It's not just one thing, right? Like I feel like in the first Trump administration, it was like a microdose of horrors. And I feel in the second administration, it has been on 11 since day one of just a new headline every single day, whether it be like the contrast between like the affordability crisis and Trump enriching himself, or what we're seeing at the human level of people being ripped from their homes and the masked ICE agents doing horrific things, to like, you know, the peace president actually starting conflict abroad, writing checks to Argentina. It's an amalgamation of really bad things, and thankfully it's showing in the polls.
In addition to hitting new lows in his polling, Trump's agenda is also running into substantive roadblocks. Trump has had a record number of nominations blocked by the U.S. Senate, more than double.
The Republican-controlled
Exactly.
US Senate.
Right. And he's had to withdraw double as many as Biden did at this point in his term because he's appointed so many nutcases that Republicans quietly say, I'm not voting for that. And it hasn't made the news, but he actually is having a hard time getting those people through. In addition, he illegally appointed all of these district attorneys to try to fill the DOJ with people who would do whatever he wanted.
Who are comically bad.
Comically bad.
Shocked if they even passed the LSAT, let alone made it through law school.
And they're now getting removed, where 4 of them, also not in the news, but 4 of them have now been blocked or removed from their posts or have ongoing procedures to do that because they were illegally appointed into their roles. Further, Trump has no healthcare plan, and ACA premiums are about to double. He thought that he had a path and put out this plan last 2 weeks ago that would have addressed the extension of the Obamacare subsidies, and Republicans in Congress blocked it and freaked out and went against him.
Yeah.
And now he's saying that he has no alternative. And so there are meaningful ways in which the administration is coming apart that is going to prevent him from being able to do anything next year, which is great for us because everything he wants to do is terrible.
Yeah, if you really probably asked anyone on the street, what would you say Trump has accomplished or what his agenda has been? Everything has been either to personally enrich himself and his family, or you think about all the support he's given abroad. Not much has happened domestically that actually impacts the living experience of Americans.
The number one thing is tariffs. The number one thing that he's accomplished that changes domestic policy is tariffs. We're all paying more. And that, too, is likely to get struck down by the Supreme Court. And Republicans in Congress have been saying, if that gets struck down, we're not passing it. He doesn't have the power. I have to remind people, he does not have the power to institute the unilateral tariffs that he did without congressional involvement. And it will be up to the Republicans in Congress to then go pass the tariffs, which I don't see happening because Republicans have been crossing the aisle to vote to repeal the tariffs when Democrats have forced votes on repealing his emergency powers over these tariffs. So I don't see them getting the votes that they need in order to reinstitute tariffs that already got repealed by the Supreme Court.
The administration is such a joke. It's so embarrassing. You know, when I walked in today, we were talking about the, I'm using air quotes, press conference at the Pentagon, because as you may or may not recall, the Pentagon changed their, rules of engagement with media, and they were going to force media to sign this new contract that basically was you can't fact check us and you can't be critical, and everyone was eat shit,
right,
and left. So they held a press conference with Laura Loomer and Matt Gaetz. What clownery. What clownery.
If we live in a world where that's considered the media,
then consider me a rocket scientist.
Things are bad, and Trump is doing lots of bad things, and I am not trying to minimize it, but it's also important for us to acknowledge where we are finding success and getting lucky, both, in blocking his really, really harmful agenda.
Clickbait, double click. I have a couple of headlines this week that I want to share with you, and for those who may be new listeners, LOL. What we do is Brian or I decide if we consider the article or headline clickbait or double click, and we talk about it a little bit more. My first headline: Costco sues the Trump administration for a refund of tariffs.
Double click. This blew up the internet.
Yeah.
People are loving Costco. People are going nuts. Bulk. All these New Yorkers are going to have apartments full of jumbo goldfish packages because people are loving Costco so much. It's a big deal because it would cripple Trump's agenda if he has to pay all this money back. Trump has repeatedly said that he was going to use the funds raised by tariffs that we all pay to do all kinds of things. There was one analysis that showed he had spent about $2 trillion in promises for a couple $100 billion. It was maybe 200 billion or so in what will be raised annually from tariffs.
But again, paid by us.
Right. And so if that money has to be refunded, the financial hole that Trump is going to find himself in is going to be crazy. And it's good for companies to be standing up and doing something when everyone's ready to bend the knee, when everyone's trying to be Tim Cook on their knees in the White House. Yeah. I think that it's good for companies to show that there's still somebody willing to push back. Okay, mine. Michael Dell and his wife, Susan, are donating $6 billion to the Trump accounts, air quotes, for 25 million US children.
Spoiler alert, I had this for you too. So just because we both had it, I think it has to just be a slight double click. My thing is like, why not just be philanthropic?
That's what they think they're doing.
That's what they think they're doing. I understand that, but it's like, huh?
Right.
What the Trump administration is doing is that from like X date to Y date, they're putting $1,000 into like a Trump account for children, new children born between those dates. And that's like their like, you know, population weird eugenics thing that they're doing.
To incentivize people to have babies.
Yes. But yet they don't actually want to provide those babies with like basic human rights and livable wages and education.
I mean, that's what's insidious about it to me, is that they're seeing it as a trade-off that, oh, you're going to get $1,000 in an account, so don't worry about your healthcare premiums doubling. That won't even cover 1 month of your new healthcare premium.
Correct.
Don't worry about grocery prices continuing to increase. Don't worry about the cost of education. Don't worry about the increasing cost of childcare because you can have $1,000. Is like very... How dumb do you think we are?
That's exactly it. It's kind of like I saw that headline this morning or last night or whenever it came out, and I kind of felt like it was like a look over there. Like, why don't we raise the federal minimum wage? Why don't we do all of these other things? And I hate that we in this capitalistic society rely on or applaud billionaires for doing the bare minimum that actually provide them with a tax write-off most of the time, when our government institutions and our tax-paying dollars should be providing basic social services for Americans.
Yeah, it's really an endorsement of taxes, right?
Right.
Like them paying $6 billion that they have lying around in order to put this money into these accounts is like, no, that's not supposed to be your choice. You should be paying taxes. The idea that you pay into the system that then benefits future generations, that's what taxes are for.
Mm-hmm.
And so tax the rich. They probably paid $0 in federal income taxes as a family.
Right.
And so the idea that this was like their optional generous thing is like, no, there should be a minimum that you're required to pay. Like I have to pay, like you have to pay.
Yeah.
And it's a double-digit % of what I make.
Totally.
Like,
speaking of, I came back from Thanksgiving, and you know what was in my mailbox?
Tell me.
That check from Kathy Hochul. What is it? Is it
I have
money?
no idea. Hochul's worried. It means that Auntie Kathy is worried about her election next year, and we all got a little check.
Literally, I was like, I thought it was a tax refund because I have. Like,
I think it was.
It kind of is.
Was it for tariffs or
it's
inflation?
An inflation check for us.
Well, let me tell you, it did not cover inflation.
I know. I saw it and I was like, she meant well here.
Yeah. My last headline for you. The U.S. has taken a $150 million stake in a chip making business under Donald Trump.
One of many stakes.
This is now more than $10 billion in equity that the U.S. government has taken out of private companies since Trump got elected.
So you're saying that we're going to have state-owned businesses.
This is what I'm saying. It's comical.
Yeah.
To be
name
so
it,
panicked about socialism
Yes.
in New York, about socialist Mamdani, about the socialist takeover, and then to be forcing companies to hand over ownership to the government is literal socialism / communism. Like, that's the actual definition, right?
Yeah.
Is state-owned industry.
It's crazy. I see how Trump will talk about it, and he says, we deserve some of the revenue coming out of these companies because they were built in America and it was American labor and all of these things. And it's like, yes, and tax rich people more. Give people better tax brackets. Like, these casualties of capitalism, the worker who like don't have these amazing salaries, who help build these companies. It's like he's naming the things. He's just like taking the money though and not effectively distributing it, which is...
I mean, it also just, to me, shows that Trump has no personal ideology. Everything is a shortcut to attention, power, money. And he doesn't really hold any, like, deeply held personal beliefs about what the purpose of government is, how it should work, what it the future of America should look like. Everything has always been about harnessing the rage of everyday people to advance his personal position in the country.
Absolutely. And we didn't talk about it, but to that point, the Mamdani Trump meeting was, I think, emblematic of that. The attention economy, Trump just eating it up. He loves the winter. He loves New York. And watching that, I was stroking out, thinking I was in the Twilight Zone. Okay, Brian.
Should we leave him with a good vibe goodbye?
We should. It is the holiday season.
Our good vibe for the week is actually about climate change. A new report has come out that really surprised a lot of people, myself included, showing that global efforts to address climate change are going much better today than they were a decade ago. This new data came out that's showing that instead of the 50 gigatons of CO2 emissions that were expected in the next 2 decades, we're actually aiming more for somewhere between like 30 and 38, which is obviously still a lot, kind of an unimaginable sum, but
less than
a fraction of what was projected as of 10 years ago. And this has been a positive surprise for people in the climate movement.
And this is the United States, or this is globally?
Global.
Yeah. I mean, what I will say is that sometimes we think that we are the center of the world. And in many cases we are. And our actions and inactions do affect the world. But there are many other countries, China, Brazil, like all of these countries are taking serious action to combat climate change. And just because the United States does not mean that global leaders aren't. So it's good. It's kind of embarrassing, right, that we're not and that we're behind. But hey
I'll take it.
Same.
We all share the same air. So.
We are the world. We are the children.
With that, we'll leave you guys till next week.
Happy holidays. Vibes Only is a production of Vibes Only the Podcast, LLC, produced by us, Glennis Mahar and
Brian Derrick,
with audio producer Baze Hohen and digital producer Maddie Hart. We want to hear from you. Send us voice notes, drop a comment, and if you're vibing with the pod, share it with your friends. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. We'll see you next week.
See ya.